Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm the sales director of Vistar Media. We are a programmatic digital home DSP. The other half of the session is also our SSP. We'll take you through kind of what our media owner partners log into when they list their inventory on our exchange. But just for background, Vistar Media has been in the market globally for over 10 years now, in Canada over 5 years. And basically what we built is proprietary technology for data-driven and measurable digital out-of-home campaigns. So digital home, you think about billboards, bus shelters, screens in office buildings, apartment buildings, retail environments, all that stuff. So today I'm just going to do a quick half-hour session on our DSP. So right now I'm just sharing the screen. On the left-hand side, you'll kind of just see this legend. So right now we're just in the dashboard view. This is a demo seat, so you're not going to see any specific spend by advertiser or insertion order or anything like that. But we do work with clients in a few different ways. The first is managed service, the second is co-managed, and the third is self-serve. So this is essentially what the self-serve DSP would look like. Where you can basically have your own login and then basically be able to transact and plan across any different type of brand or vertical, really depending on the type of campaign that you're trying to run. So yeah, so you're not going to see anything here, but if you were running campaigns, all of this would kind of be populated as you kind of go. Today, I'll take you through mostly the planning tool. This is basically where you can pull avails, pick certain targeting, all that kind of stuff. Insertion orders is where your live campaigns will live. So I'll just kind of do a quick overview of that as well. Same with reporting. Reporting is pretty straightforward. It's basically just in the out-of-home space. It's a lot more simple in terms of like campaign tracking and impression reporting because there's not a lot of interactions with the actual media itself. Out-of-home is obviously a very upper funnel awareness type media where you can't really interact with the screens themselves. So there's no clicks, there's no acquisitions or anything like that. We're really just reporting based on impression delivered. But I can show you some ways that we can basically connect your upper funnel tactics to some lower funnel metrics like device ID passback and mobile retargeting. And then just quickly, the inventory discovery tab. So this is a newer tab just in the platform. So for people that are potentially newer to the out-of-home space, this is where you can actually come in and take a look at by venue type or by media owner, all of the different partners that we have in our platform. So as an example, you can just click on one of the profiles here. So say you weren't familiar with like branded cities. It'll just kind of give you an overview of the type of inventory that they have, the type of audiences that they reach, and then some quick like images of like the screens that they have as well. So just gives you a quick, I guess, media owner profile of these specific media owners. So today I will take you through mostly the planning tool, kind of show you how to build a plan, kind of what that looks like, and just different ways to, I guess, target different digital home screens in general. So we can just put a test plan here. I'll just keep it as a test advertiser as well. So then you would set your start and end date. So say we wanted to do for 1 month, we just wanted to know what the avails were for the month of April coming up. So let's just set it to the 1st to the 30th. And then we'll set it, you can plan in either budget or impressions. So if you had like an impression goal, you can plan that way. Otherwise, you can plan with revenue or your actual like campaign budget. I would say, it really just depends, but say we were to put in $50,000. If you were an agency and you wanted to include or back out your markup, so say you wanted to use a gross budget of $50,000 and you had a certain agency markup, this is where you can add your markup in, or you can plan against a fixed CPM. So I'll just leave it blank for now. There's really, it can be any percentage points that you want, but we'll just leave it blank for now. So just gonna hit save. So our shell campaign is saved, and then you'll kind of start to see the overall plan. So just like your top line metrics are here, you can always come in and change them at any time. And then you'll kind of start to see different targeting parameters on the left-hand side, some buttons down here, some buttons down here. and your overall just top line metrics here. So I like to start in these kind of buttons below where I can start to add targeting to my campaign. So we plan at a home in a few different ways. The first is audience targeting. So if you wanted to do like a demographic audience using Environics, for example, would be one of our data partners, and you wanted to target women 30 to 55 that have kids under the age of 14, for example, you can basically select or build custom audiences in the platform, or you can plan by proximity. So proximity would be using points of interest. So we partner with Foursquare. They're like a location-based POI partner. And they basically have like hundreds of different points of interest mapped out across pretty much all of the different verticals. So if you were, for example, like financial services, and you wanted to map out all of the BMO, TDs, maybe like CIBC locations. So we have all the big top 5 banks. I think RBC should be in here as well. Yeah, I think, and then Scotia, I think would be the final one. But yeah, so say we were to map out all of the top 5 big banks in Canada, then you can set your radius. So say you wanted to capture all of the digital out of home screens that fall within, say, a 500-meter radius of each of these locations. You can also set, so say, say you are CIBC and you are the advertiser, and you wanted to do more of a just loyalty campaign around your locations, and then more tightly competitive conquest around your competitor locations, you can actually set different radii based on the POI that you're targeting. So say you want to do 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer around CIBC locations, and then 500 meters around the rest, you can kind of adjust it kind of whatever way that you want. You can also plan by metro area, by province, so the geographic region. So right now, if we don't select anything, we're saying we want to look at everything nationally, but then I can also come in and start to, target by province. So say we just wanted to do like Alberta, BC, Ontario, maybe not PEI, let's go Quebec. So kind of the big 4 provinces across Canada. You can plan by metro area as well. You can also plan even smaller geographically by like city or neighborhood. So say you wanted to target like the GTA, like Brampton, Durham, something like that, you would find that under neighborhood. And you can also upload custom postal codes. So if you just had a list of FSAs across Canada that you wanted to target, you can target that way as well. The other option is custom POIs. So you'll notice under Foursquare, there is a cost associated. So that 85 cents for these specific POIs. It's a flat rate, so you're not paying 85 cents for each one. It's just 85 cents flat, and you pick as many as you want. Or you can upload your own POIs. So this is if you have brick and mortar locations or any retail specific locations that have an address, you can basically upload a list here and target around your list as well. So that will kind of avoid that 85 cent cost because you're obviously bringing your own data, you're uploading your own POI list. So just kind of working your way down. So the third kind of, I guess, targeting tactic in out of home is weather triggering. So we partner with a company called IBM Watson's Weather. They basically have hundreds of different conditions across just, weather conditions in general. So you'll kind of see like, you can select like when it's very sunny or very humid, or when it's like heavy rain or whatever it is, or whatever really. You can select as many as you want. You can also select based on activity. So specific like pharma symptoms. So this is really good for like OTC brands, CPG brands, and pharma as well. So if you want to target people based on like, certain weather activities that may trigger, people to have more migraines, or, specific like retail triggers as well. So there's like some CPG. So say you want to do like, ice cream when maybe like the weather is warmer and people are more likely to purchase ice cream. Same with like personal care and retail as well. So just a few options there. I would definitely say if you did want to do a weather tactic, to kind of break out your tactics. So you're not planning POIs and weather, you're just kind of doing them separately. So I won't add any weather triggers to this plan, just because you'll start to see avails sort of drop once you're adding them in. versus layering them, or sorry, when you're laying them on top of each other versus just adding them in as separate tactics. So then working your way down, you can go down to venue type. So we're in the sort of contextual alignment area of planning. So this is where you can plan across the different venue types. So, I mean, I think a lot of the time people think of outdoor as, or built, or just out of home as outdoor, billboards, bus shelters, maybe urban panels. Urban panels are those like digital columns, mostly in Montreal, but in different markets as well, that are in and around subway stations, but aren't actually connected to a bus stop, but look really similar to a bus shelter. So that'd be urban panels. I think that's usually like what people think of, but there's also so many different types of venues in the out-of-home space. And there's also probably, I think, like 35 to 40 different media owners in Canada as well that represent, you know, a multitude of different venue types. So it really just depends on, you know, potentially the line of business that you're trying to target or the brand. Using this like financial services example, you know, if you're trying to target a younger demographic, potentially, you know, with like a new credit card or, you know, savings account or something, you could pick like colleges and universities, bars and casual dining, sports and entertainment. I can kind of just pick a few, or you can just leave them blank. If you leave them blank, it's saying I want to see all of the avails by venue types. So I'll probably do that. What you can also do is just do on an exclude basis as well. So this goes for all of the targeting parameters in our platform. So instead of saying, I just want to include, you know, these 5 venue types, you can click exclude and just say, okay, I want to look at everything, but I want to exclude certain venues. So say I know as, you know, a bank, like I won't qualify to run in other banks. So I'm just going to exclude that. I might exclude, you know, DMVs as well. I might exclude doctor's offices and maybe like dispensaries and liquor stores, because they just don't align contextually with my brand or, you know, who I'm trying to reach. So let's just use those as just examples for exclusions. Audiences, I will show you, actually, I'll kind of split the demo and show you what an audience plan would look like instead. So I'm just gonna leave that blank as well, because again, proximity, audience, and weather are typically targeted separately as different tactics in an overall plan, but not layered on top of each other. What you can do though is day parting. So say, you know, you're the bank and you only want to target when your retail locations are open. So say from 8 to 8, those are the only times we want to be open. And then banks are typically 7 days a week. So let's leave that there. Deals. So this is, again, a self-serve capability. But deals is basically allows you to create your own one-to-one PMPs specifically with the media owners. So if you had access to the self-serve seat, you could basically negotiate your own deals, and that would sit under my deals. This is a demo seat, so you're not seeing anything under there. But the alternative is deal discovery. So deal discovery basically allows you to select any of the pre-populated deals that are already in the platform. So it's basically the media owners. So you'll see a lot of like familiar ones like All Vision, Astral, Captivate, who basically packaged up specific inventory and made it available via PMP. So again, I'll just leave this blank, but it is always available as well. The other option is being able to plan against specific media owners. So this is where you can actually select specific media owners that you want to run on or don't want to run on. A good example of this is like billboards, for example. There's, you know, 8 to 10 different media owners that own billboard inventory across the country. So if you just wanted to exclude a specific media owner because you might be doing, say, a direct buy with them, or you just don't want to include them because of like the nature of their inventory, could be like based on spec sizes or whatever it is, you can always come and exclude specific media owners. Creative category also, depending on the advertiser, allows you to just check avails based on the type of advertiser that you are. So this would be like financial services. So, you know, there's not a ton of exclusions unless you're targeting office buildings, for example, where you obviously, if you're CIBC, you can't run in like the TD building or the RBC building. So that would be an exclusion. But for the most part, I would say On the category level, it's really for like alcohol and cannabis, and other just more in politics, where other more just like restrictive verticals where they can't run in every single venue type or in any specific contextual environment. The other one is creative format. So this is again where you can pick. So out of home is typically all static, like every venue type can run static. But there are exclusions to the type of venues that can run video. So the best example is anything that's roadside. So bus shelters, urban panels, and billboards, they cannot run video due to, just it being like a driving hazard for people that are, passing by these locations. So those venues always have to be static images. But pretty much all of the other venues can run some form of video, either 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 10s. It really just depends on the venue type. And then kind of same goes for audio requirement. So if you have video and the venue type accepts video, some of them will or won't accept audio. It really just depends. I think you are, at the end of the day, just selecting the venues based on, the contextual alignment where you want to be running. So I just hit save. I just hit save on that plan, but I'm just going to save it overall in the platform as well. And then you'll kind of see this map start to populate with circles with numbers and then these little eye icons. So if I start to click into or go just sort of zoom into the map, you'll see this start to kind of break apart and you'll start to see all of the screens and mapping in a bit more detail. So these numbers with the circles would indicate there are 12 screens there. There are 1,400 screens here. And each of the eyes would indicate where there is a bank location. So one of those top 5 banks. There's obviously tons of banks across Canada. So you can actually start to keep zooming in and start to see where all those locations are and what types of screens you're actually targeting. So, I would say that if we wanted to reduce, if say we took out some of those banks, you would start to see those radii a bit more clearly. Obviously, the downtown core is packed with financial services locations. But you can also just click into based on any of the out-of-home screens that qualify. So they're within that 500 or 1 kilometer radius of those locations. You can start to see what screens you're going to be targeting. So if I click on a screen, you'll see the venue type and the media owner, and then some images of what those screens might look like. So this is actually bars. So it's actually should be this resto bar here. You can exclude screens on a screen level as well. So you said, for whatever reason, I just don't want to run in this location, you can actually exclude that venue as well. So you can start to go down and actually just take a look at like what all of these screens are. If you wanted to, the other option would be you can actually export this exact map to a separate window. So if you wanted to just share the map with your client, if you're the agency, or if you just wanted to view the map in something that's not directly within the DSP, you can do that via this share map feature right here. And then you can also export the venue. So if you wanted to export every single screen that you're targeting throughout your campaign, you want to know the lat long, the screen name, the media owner, the FSA that's running in, that would be this export venue button here. So this is just the map view. I'll just start to scroll down and then we can start to update basically your plan or your blocking chart or whatever kind of you want to call it. So you'll just see right now, we're just breaking out with one line item. What you can start to do is group the plan by different metrics. So typically, depending on the type of plan that you're building, province is a good one. So just anything geographically, if you have specific budget splits by geography, or venue type is pretty common. Same with media owner as well. I'll just break it up by venue type so you can start to see all of the avails that are available based on the plan, that $50,000, and all of the screens that we have available as well. So on the left-hand side, you'll see venue type. Venues, you'll see the number of venues. So they'll vary, but you'll see that there are tons of different screens. So the venues is the venue count or the number of screens that you're targeting. Available impressions is basically what is available for the time frame and the screens that we've selected based on open exchange avails. So in this case, there's $9.5 million that are available for your plan. We're only targeting a $50,000 total, or that's kind of the budget that we put in. You'll notice that this $50,000 does not totally add up to the allocated media cost, because you're also considering the audience cost, so the 85 cents for those POIs for Foursquare. So then you can kind of look from left to right. So venue type, the number of screens, the total avails that are available by cost and by impressions, if you want to plan by revenue or impressions, what is basically allocated based on the budget that we put in. You'll notice that for the most part, it's broken out pretty evenly. So kind of see here, based on the avails, it's broken out more or less around like that 4.5% view. But you can basically come in and adjust any of these budgets or any of these allocations as well. So if you wanted to say that you actually want to allocate more budget to malls, you can just come in here and readjust your budget allocation. So say we would have put in $10,000 to malls, so it'll obviously be heavier weighted to those locations. I can update the table and it'll basically just reallocate your impressions. So now you have 7% of your budget going towards that mall inventory. We added reach frequency numbers in the platforms. You'll see that as well. It's based on like an elasticity of the type of venue that you're running on, and just methodology based on your total reach and frequency across the impressions that are being delivered. Your suggested bid. So this is basically saying that this is the dollar amount that you should bid if you want to bid on all $1.38 million of inventory that's available. If you don't necessarily care about being on every single one of these 848 screens, and it might just be that there's different costs for specific screens. They might be in just, more premium placements, better malls, whatever it is. Where the media owners have listed that inventory at a higher price floor. So if you don't necessarily care about that and you still want to run in malls and you're willing to run in, potentially 90% of the malls that are available, but not that full 100%, you can actually just come in here and start to reduce the allocations that you have. So if I were to reduce it to say 90% of the available screens, not the full 100, you'll notice that your CPM starts to go down. So if I do that across the board, so right now we have a $50,000 plan, 3.8 million impressions, 8,000 venues, your revenue in media eCPM. So media is just for the media cost. It doesn't include the Foursquare data costs. So you're really planning to that $12.89 for your revenue CPM. But what you can do is if I start to reduce all of these a bit down, because, your budget's not that big, you're not planning towards, the max avails that are available within the platform. So you're really not planning to that $9.5 million. You can just start to reduce the plans. And then you'll notice as I start to reduce these, that your revenue CPM starts to go down. So the plan that you would build based on the CPM that you'd send to your client, if you're the agency, or if you're the brand, you can basically plan to this number here. So you can reduce it pretty significantly, especially if, say, I was just setting them to 90%, but say you wanted to set it down to 50, you still have, you're still targeting over 175 different screens. You can reduce that pretty significantly across the board, and you'll notice that your CPM does start to continue to go down. So kind of the big ones I would say would be like billboard inventory. There's such a big range of billboard inventory. Sometimes the CPMs can be quite low and sometimes they can be really high, just depending on where you're targeting. The best example is like those really high impact boards at Yonge and Dundas Square definitely do garner a significant premium than maybe a billboard in a smaller market, like Alberta, for example. So right now we're just breaking everything out by venue type. You can also plan by market just to kind of get an idea of where your avails are. I was just zooming into Toronto as well. Like if we were to look at it nationally, you'll see that there's pretty significant distribution of screens across the country. I would definitely say that out of home does concentrate to more urban areas. And I think that's really just the nature of where the media owners, so the Pattisons, the Astrals, the Outfronts of the world, just have selected to build their digital out-of-home screens. There's obviously quite a bit of maintenance that goes into screens, especially in more rural areas. So we'll see that there is actually quite good representation across the board, but a lot of the concentration is in, the VetCom markets, but you will see a lot of distribution across the board just in general as well, across some of the smaller ones. So just to be conscious of time, there are a few other options that I can show you. So when you do run an out-of-home campaign or a programmatic digital out-of-home campaign, one of the biggest benefits is being able to do measurement. So being able to do a brand lift study or a foot traffic study based on how your entire out-of-home campaign performed. So that is really the nature of programmatic, is basically aggregating all of the media owners into one platform and basically being able to do, a brand lift study across the entire buy. So being able to measure brand awareness, purchase intent, purchase consideration, brand favorability. You get 3 custom questions as well. We can kind of ask different things like, search behavior, message recall, ad sentiment, really kind of whatever you want, depending on the brand that you are. For financial services, if you were like, I want to understand how often people might switch checking accounts or switch credit cards or something like that, or how many credit cards people have. Those are kind of good custom insights that we can basically build from the campaign. The other option is device ID passback. So this basically allows you to, so we are the ad server for the out-of-home campaign. We know the exact timestamp and location of when the ads are served. We can then basically collect all of the device IDs that were in front of the screens at the time of ad play and pass them back to another omni-channel DSP. Vistar is, based on the planning tool and based on the platform, obviously very out-of-home focused. So if you did want to connect your out-of-home buy with more lower funnel metrics like mobile retargeting, CTV, any of those other more digital or omni-channel targeting tactics, we can basically collect those device IDs and pass them back to whatever DSP that you want, DV360, Trade Desk, Yahoo, whatever DSP. So then you can build out audiences and do the retargeting within that platform. So kind of starting to use technology to marry those two different concepts. The third one is dynamic creative. So we've launched dynamic creative in the last year, basically being able to allow you to, based on the creative that you're running and the tactics that you're running, dynamically bring in certain feeds into the creative elements itself. So the opposite of like weather triggering. So weather triggering with IBM Watson's weather would be only serving ads when certain conditions are met, where dynamic creative would be being able to bring in the temperature or the location of, your specific the closest retailer, or a specific like sports score or like team matchup or something like that directly into the out-of-home ad itself. So if you wanted to run a campaign nationally on billboards and you wanted to do, the closest distance to your financial services branch location, the ad can actually say, based on where the ad is served at that time and place, you are 200 meters away or 500 meters away from this CIBC location at this specific address. So a newer concept in the out-of-home space. It's kind of been around in the online world for a long time, but we built a solution that basically allows you to run that across multiple different media owners. So that is basically a proximity targeting tactic. I can just quickly show you what an audience targeting tactic would look like. It's pretty similar. You'll start to see, so I'm just going to take this out. You will start to see, instead of those circles with the screens that qualify, you'll start to see this sort of like overall map. And that is basically the audience overlay onto the screens that are qualifying for your campaign. So we partner with a few different data partners in Canada. The first one is Environics. They give us a lot of like census level data across just like demographics, household income. They have all of their prism segments as well that kind of go into more like psychographic, different groupings, things like that. We have Foursquare, so they have a lot more like behavioral type data. So Foursquare and Factual, you'll notice the Factual's here, but they actually merged companies, I think, a couple of years ago. So you'll see different audiences there. And then just the LiveRamp data store as well. So we have access to a ton of different, just like, third-party behavioral audiences through different data partners. We have like app install data, B2B, different segments, Nielsen. Kind of depends on the data set that you want to use. Just for simplicity's sake, I'll just select this audience here. It's Environics. It's a demo audience, so adults aged 30 to 44, with a household income of 80K plus. So if I add that into my plan, you'll notice all of the impressions basically start to get redistributed, and we can start to see this like blue outline of where the audience is most likely to be at any given time of day. So based on this audience, we basically, from Environics, ingest postal code data. We then geoprocess the data in the form of a heat map, and then overlay the heat map onto all of the screens that are available that we're targeting. So you'll notice that, there's certain heat in different pockets of the GTA, and we're only targeting screens that fall within where the audience overlay is. So that's kind of the difference between audiences and proximity. But then basically the plan can still be built out the exact same way. So you're still targeting by venue type, you're still allocating budgets the same way. You'll just notice that the CPM might change because you're then adding in a different audience cost. So I'll just update this here. And that's pretty much it. I guess the other thing I can show you is creative specs. So based on the plan that we broke out, we do have a creative transcoder that allows you to just, I guess, reduce the number of spec sizes that you would have to build out in the out-of-home space. If you were to go, directly to a media owner, media owners, there might be like 10 to 20 different sizes that you actually have to build. Our creative transcoder basically transcodes specs of similar aspect ratios. So if it's like 9:16 or 16:9, you only need to build out 2 sizes versus having, every single size that falls within that aspect ratio, but might be just a slightly different pixel ratio or pixel size, sorry. So there's that. We also have letterboxing as well. It kind of allows you to fit your creative within spec sizes that are very similar as well. So you'll notice that, yeah, there's maybe this one size can run across all of these different venues. There's this 1400 by 400 and 1920 by 1080. I would say, yeah, for this plan, you might actually only need 3 or 4 different sizes to basically fulfill the majority of your plan. So you can download this as well. You can also show video duration, some good just tools there to basically flesh out or plan from end to end a campaign. And then when your campaign is ready to go, so say, we're happy with this plan, we like the audience targeting, we like the venue types, all the day parting that we've layered on. Basically, all you then need to do is hit launch. It'll basically launch your campaign into your insertion order tab. So say we were to do that, it'll basically launch your campaign into insertion orders that will build out the campaign basically exactly how you built it out in the planning tool. So this is by venue type, so it knows all of the different venues. And this is where you can come in and add your creative, schedule it, review your targeting, and actually turn your campaign live. So this is where obviously it's all paused. You can actually just update the status, bulk status upload, and upload creative, or bulk status, turn your campaign on. It won't go live until the actual start date or until any of the creatives are approved, but it's pretty simple. Like you kind of just go directly from planning to IO, and then your campaign would basically just live there. Yeah, and that's pretty much the DSP. From there, there's reporting. You can kind of come in, pull any reports that you want, break it out kind of however way that you want as well, schedule reports. All that usual stuff that you're used to in the online DSP world are also available in the out-of-home space as well.